You're listening to Men of Abundance, episode 220 with Dan Kuiper. And today we're talking about the importance of fatherhood.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
What's up, Men of Abundance? I am Wally Carmichael, your founder and host of the Men of Abundance podcast, the Pay It Forward community, and today we are paying it forward in a big way. We're going to talk a little bit, guys, don't freak out. We're going to talk a little bit about our emotions and some pain that we may have endured through childhood from those that we love most. And whether we admit it or not, many of us need to have this conversation and need to hear this particular conversation. And many others are going to want to listen to this conversation as well. So be abundant in your actions today by paying it forward and sharing Men of Abundance with others. Share it on your social media, share menofabundance.com, share it from your podcast player, whichever one it is that you're listening to, and go to menofabundance.com. Click on the leave a review button underneath any one of the podcast players, and leave a review, a rating and review in iTunes, or leave a rating and review on the podcast player that you're listening to this on. That simple action pushes Men of Abundance up in the searches when people are looking on iTunes or searching online for these conversations. Now, I will say over the last couple of weeks, Men of Abundance has gotten many more downloads than in the past. I've had a lot more action and a lot more visits to menofabundance.com, and it's all because of those of you who are sharing Men of Abundance within your circles, because I do absolutely no advertising to push Men of Abundance out there. I have done none in the last almost 3 years. So whatever you guys are doing out there, keep doing that. And those of you who are not sharing, be abundant in your actions today. Pay it forward and share Men of Abundance, and go leave a rating and review on iTunes or on your podcast player. So listen, guys, many of us go through various levels of emotional and physical pain in our life. As sad as it is, many times that pain is caused by those who are closest to us, even our own parents. And that's confusing because our parents are supposed to protect us from harm. And listen, sometimes in their minds, our parents are protecting us from future disappointment and failures in life. Most men bury this pain deep in their mind and deny its existence. This, I hope you know, is the worst thing you can do. And today, Dan Kuiper is going to share his story and how it may help you and your children. Our featured guest today, Dan Kuiper, is an author, speaker, addictions counselor, and director of Finding Father's Love, a nonprofit ministry that offers hope and healing to those who have been wounded by painful circumstances in their lives. Dan has a strong passion towards those who carry father wounds. His book, When Father is a Bad Word, has been critically acclaimed and continues to carry a 5-star rating on Amazon. Dan facilitates Finding Father's Love seminars and retreats across the country, helping participants find freedom from the painful effects of a difficult past. Dan is a father of 3 and grandfather of 4 and resides with his wife in South Bend, Indiana. Men of Abundance, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Dan Kuiper. Dan, welcome to Men of Abundance, brother. How you doing?
Just great. Glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. Super exciting, man. I dig what you're doing, man. So I just had to reach out to you and introduce you to Men of Abundance to the show.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely. So where are you at in the world?
Where am I at? Oh, my world. I'm in South Bend, Indiana, about 3 miles from Notre Dame.
Oh, wow. Have not
Such
been
an
there yet.
avid football fan am I that we rent our house out for game weekends.
Is that right?
I'm a baseball guy, so what can I say?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's cool, man. That's pretty neat that you do that. How long have you been doing that for? That's interesting to me.
We've been in South Bend 7 years, and we've probably been renting with Airbnb for 3.
Oh, wow.
So get to meet a lot of interesting folks from around the world.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. So it's the house that you live in.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just rent a room or whatever.
Yeah, we can either rent a couple of spare rooms that we have. We've already rented the entire house.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, whatever people's needs are, but we have the whole home football schedule already booked for this coming season.
Man, that is really cool. And one of the most intriguing things about that, of course, you make a little bit extra cash, which is cool, but just to meet the people is amazing. Yeah. While I was in Hawaii doing split ops, my family was here in Tampa, Florida since September, and I didn't come until mid-June. So what I was doing was driving Uber and Lyft just because I just wanted to give it a try. And in Waikiki, man, I mean, I picked up families from China, from Russia, Australia. Wow. I mean, you name it, just all kinds of characters and amazing people.
Yeah, it's a great way to get to know people, that's for sure.
It really is. And actually, I wasn't considering doing it here in the Tampa area, but actually, I think once I get my plates on my truck, as we were talking pre-show, make it official that I'm Floridian, I'm going to actually start doing it again for two reasons. One, because I like to get to know people in the community, but two, I don't know much about this place. I want to drive around a little bit, and I certainly, even after living in in Hawaii for 10 years, I saw places of Oahu, the island of Oahu, I had never even been to before in 10 years, and it's not a big place.
Wow,
so
sure.
It's really a lot of fun, and it's, nice little extra cash, for that.
That always helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does, man. It certainly does. And like I said, I really didn't do it for the money as much as, although I did pay for my flights back and forth when I was coming to visit the family and stuff, but just meeting the people, and I really got a lot out of it.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm a people person too, so yeah. I'm all over that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's funny because some people get in and don't say a word, and others get in and just want to have you'd be amazed at the conversations people have without that. It's like, hello, I'm sitting here.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've made friends from around the world, and we stay linked on Facebook. It's great.
Yeah, it's really cool. So, I like to start out with an attitude of gratitude, man. What do you have to be grateful for today?
Oh man, I am truly blessed, more than I deserve. But I'd have to say I'm most grateful for my family, for an amazing and supportive wife. We've got 3 grown kids, 4 grandkids with more on the way. But as I've been thinking about this interview, something else I am profoundly grateful for is healing I've experienced in my life from some rather difficult and painful childhood issues, and that God has used those experiences to allow me now to be a source of hope and healing to others who are going through similar things. There's just no better feeling than that.
That is absolutely 100% correct, and we are definitely going to get into your kick in the gut moment here in just a minute. But and I venture to say that you've got some pretty good ones. But the whole thing about this abundance mindset and this abundance lifestyle is exactly what you just said, is taking those kick in the gut moments, or not even just a kick in the gut moment, just knowledge that you have, and helping somebody else through their situation, through their life, whether it's donating your time, talents, or treasure, and any or all of the above. And the payback in just emotional, growth for ourselves is huge.
Absolutely. I just went to a memorial service for a cousin of mine who passed away after dealing with cancer for 5 years. She was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer when she was in her mid-40s. And she realized she had a decision to make. She could feel sorry for herself and cash it in, or she could use this as an opportunity for growth, not only in herself, but to allow her to help others to grow. So she started a group called Overcomers, just people who are dealing with life-threatening illnesses. And dozens and dozens of people started to go to these meetings. And if you question whether or not it made a difference, there were probably, I'm guessing, 500 people at her funeral, many with incredible stories of how Darcy used her pain to help them through theirs. And I'll tell you what, a lot of it is just choices that we have to make when we're faced with difficult circumstances.
And how long did she survive after
5 years.
Dad, I think
5
you said that.
years.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
you know,
it
I
was
would
incredible.
have to say, hands down, part of the reason why she held on for 5 years is because of her purpose. She had
Hmm.
that purpose in her life.
Absolutely. God had something for her to give to others, and
Hmm.
she gave it away freely. And the comments people made at her funeral were just heartwarming, just what a difference she made. And really, life is too short. I think we have to be all about making a positive difference in the lives of others in this world.
Yeah, absolutely, and
Mm,
it's really is so easy. It's not that difficult, guys. It
right.
really is. There's, it's
Mm,
not about money. It's not, it's really just about sometimes just sitting down and listening to somebody.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's really that simple. So, Dan,
Yes.
how would you describe yourself?
Oh man, there are a lot of words to describe me. Some may not be appropriate for your show, but uh, honestly, I have gone to great lengths to be known by my kids as a good dad. I have been blessed to have accomplished some good things in life, but I will know that my life was well lived if it says on my gravestone, he was a good dad. I mean, that is the most important thing to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good for you. And I'm sure you are. I've been to your website. We're going to talk about a little bit more here in just a
Mm,
minute under your name. Beautiful, beautiful stuff you have going on there, man. And that just, guys, I was a terrible dad early on. I really was.
mm,
My whole life was the military. I was
mm,
deployed all the time. When I was home, I wasn't home. I was trying to chase that six-figure income.
mm.
Thought that being a dad was just bringing money into the house, and it's so far from the truth, man. It's so far from the truth, and I know we're going to get more into that conversation. But before we
Mhm.
do, we talked about it just briefly, is that kick in the gut moment. Guys, you know why we bring this up, man. It's just important to understand that, yeah, we all have situations in life, and while they're not exactly the same, they are very similar.
Mhm.
And it's what we do with those kick in the gut moments that really sometimes define us and put us on a different trajectory. And I don't know if that's what happened with you, Dan, but if you would, I'd love for you to share that story with us and really make us feel it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, several years ago, my wife and I went to a marriage conference. She needs a refresher every now and again, and we went to this conference, and the speaker said, "I have a question for you men, and just shout out the answer wherever you're seated." He said, "What is the first word you think of when you think of your father?" And I was sitting in the back thinking, okay, this is going to be pretty interesting. And someone immediately shouted out strong, and then came loving, and then provider, encourager, supportive. And then it got real quiet. And one man took a risk and he shouted out absent.
Mm.
Then came abusive, angry, critical, condescending, alcoholic. And Wally, I remember turning to my wife and saying, I am going to write a book. I can't stand to see all these people carrying this wound that I'm all too familiar with. And yeah, sometime later, my book was published. It's called When Father is a Bad Word, but it came out of that kick in the gut.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can relate to some of those because my dad,
Mhm.
quite frankly, he would not hurt a fly. The
Mhm.
most loving man in the world, but he was also an alcoholic, and he was also in and out of work quite often. I've
Mhm.
only seen him actually not abusive on a regular basis physically to my mom. He did once, and I got in his face about it,
Mhm.
but he was abusive in that he was an adulterer. I mean, he
Yeah.
it was, in the comments he would make to me and my brother, and I think back on it now and I'm like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
I would never use those words, or and think that to my boys.
And you remember those words
Oh
forever.
yes, absolutely,
Hmm.
100%. Yeah, yeah. So how did that all, I know about your book and stuff, and it's doing extremely well. What are some good news stories that's come out of that whole situation?
Oh my, it has just been so awesome. We talked before about meeting people through Airbnb, but meeting people through my book and through my Finding Father's Love seminars has just been so incredibly gratifying. Again, it's just knowing that you're making a difference. And people have come to me with their stories, and I'm just blown away that they are finding hope and healing for the first time in their lives, because many times, we don't talk about this stuff. I mean, we follow the three rules of growing up in an alcoholic home: don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. We follow those to a T, and actually they do protect us when we're kids. But when we continue to follow those rules in our adult lives, they can ruin us. So a part of healing is going back and breaking the rules, talking about the things that we were told never to talk about, trusting people even when the people closest to you prove themselves unworthy of trust, and just finding safe places where we can feel what we feel. And I'll tell you, we men don't do this one very well. Women definitely have it on us in that regard, but it is so important for men to feel what they feel as well. It's a huge part of the recovery process.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it's a conversation that I have quite often when it comes to men is women certainly, like you said, they certainly have it figured out because they're social. They
Sure.
get out. Now, some guys will get out there and they'll talk, and guys go to the bar, and they say, well, I go to the bar, I hang out with my guys. No, but you're watching the game, or you're at the bar, and you're, if at worst, you're at the strip club. Yeah. And how productive is that? I'm not saying you have to sit down and be all touchy-feely and talk about your feelings all the time, guys, but damn, you got to sit down and have a conversation about, hey, you have a loving wife at home. What the hell? I'm single. What the hell are you doing here with me? Type of thing. I wished I had what you had. Yeah. Or at some point you're going to wish that anyway, because you're going to die a lonely ass. But the bottom line is you need to have these conversations with each other and get in each other's face and say, look, guy, that's not the way, you got kids at home, man. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's definitely not a sign of weakness to admit that we feel whatever it is, sadness, loneliness, regret, anger. That is a sign of strength. That is owning your feelings. It's owning who you are as a person and being okay with that. Because if we never identify our feelings, we will never work through them. And if we never work through them, guess what? It's going to affect every relationship we have. And I mentioned that in my book. The relationship we have with our dad, for good or bad, will affect every relationship we ever have. And that's not an overstatement.
Well, elaborate on that a little bit. How is that?
Well, so often that we have this difficult relationship with our dad, and we become fearful of conflict. We feel abandoned. But when we never own that, when we never acknowledge that as truth in our lives, we carry that with us. A prime example, I'll tell you a little story. I did a Finding Father's Love seminar. The day before I did it, someone who was signed up to come called and said, hey, I got a friend staying with me. She's left her husband. It's not a good situation. Is it okay if she comes? I said, absolutely. We will make room for her. And she came and she soaked it up like a sponge. And she came up to me afterwards. She had a copy of my book in her hand, said, I'm going home to give this to my husband because now it all makes sense to me. He had a horrible background, and now he's bringing it into our marriage, and he doesn't realize it. So she went on her way, and several weeks later, I get a call from this guy. It's like, you don't know me, but I have to tell you my story. He mentioned that his wife was there and bought a book, so I put the pieces together. I knew who he was. He told me this gut-wrenching story of a father who walked out on him when he was, I believe, 8 years old. He was an alcoholic and just left to do his own thing. Mom married another alcoholic, which is very common. That didn't work out, divorced him, married alcoholic number 3. This one actually abused this boy physically. And he left. here comes alcoholic number 4. But this guy recognized he had a problem, and he did something about it. He went to get help, and he started investing in this boy who wasn't even his. It was his wife's son. He invested in him. He fished with him. The boy had never gone fishing before with a male. Taught him how to play catch and did things that fathers do with their sons. And then in a moment of weakness, this man took his own life. And as he's telling me the story, he just stopped dead in his tracks. And he said, everyone I trust hurts me and leaves me. I will never let that happen again. Bingo. Will you wonder why you have trouble with intimacy with your wife? This is a pattern in your life from the time you were 8. And he never connected the dots before. And thankfully, he found a lot of healing around that. And the cool thing is, he went back to his community and started investing in young boys who didn't have father figures. And he asked me to speak at a retreat. He says, I have nothing to pay you, but we'd love for you to come. We got 8 guys. I said, I'm happy to do that. I went, spent a whole weekend with those men. It was a highlight in my life. And then a couple years later, he calls me back and said, yeah, this thing has kind of grown, but we'd like you to come back and speak. We're going to have it at the church this time. So I went. On a Saturday, I drive out there and I walk into the building. There are 88 guys there. The pastor's looking around saying, I don't know most of these people, but all these people with this father wound that had no idea what to do with it. But it's been wreaking havoc in their adult relationships. And now they're finally owning that and taking steps toward healing.
Man, part of the reason why I don't do a lot of these on videos, because right now I got chills and tears in my eyes, man.
Yeah.
I'm choked up a little bit.
Yeah. And that's okay. Another sign of strength. Yeah, God gave tear ducts to men and women. Some guys don't understand that.
Man, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I'm a sucker for those stories, man. Mm-hmm. Well, good for you. That is, what an honor to be a part of something like that.
Amen.
Wow.
I love what I do.
Absolutely. So talk to me a little bit more. Tell us a little bit more about your website and what, who's it for? What are you doing there? What's the premise of the whole thing? How'd you get that started?
Well, after the book was released, I got several invitations to speak. And out of that then came a Finding Father's Love seminar that I've been doing across the country. It's as long as people want to, I can do a full retreat, I can do a 3 or 4 hour Saturday morning seminar, and we talk about things like the 3 rules of growing up in an alcoholic home. We talk about the horrible statistics on fatherlessness in America, and a lot of people don't understand. They think fatherlessness means just not having a dad in the home. Well, guess what? You can have a dad who's physically present who is never there. Right. For his kids. I see it time and time again. So we talk openly about things like this. We talk about characteristics of growing up in an alcoholic home and how we can find healing around those things. And I've been doing a lot of work with Teen Challenge, which is a wonderful organization. It's not just for teens, but it's for teenagers and on up, just people going through really difficult life circumstances who have nowhere else to turn. And I've been blessed to do seminars for them across the country. And I love it because people aren't talking about this. And it's very frustrating to me that there are 43% of kids in the United States who live without their dad, almost half. 63% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes. You look at high school dropouts, pregnant teenagers. 85% of youths in prisons grew up in fatherless homes. And I share a story about that at the seminar. About a guy who was imprisoned and Mother's Day was coming. So he went to the chaplain and he said, would you do me a favor and buy me a card to send to my mom? So she did. And the other prisoners saw it and said, where did you get that? Well, Sister so-and-so got it for me. Well, now she's got this long line of prisoners outside her door. Will you buy me a card? Will you buy me a card? She finally called Hallmark, told them what was going on. Hallmark said, you know what, we will send you 3 cases of discontinued Mother's Day cards. It's on us. And she said, well, I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, but Father's Day is in June. And they said, well, we'll send you 3 cases of Father's Day cards too. Wally, all the Mother's Day cards are gone. They haven't opened the first case of Father's Day cards yet. There is not one prisoner who cared enough about his dad to send him a card. And what does that tell us?
Wow. Yeah, and as far as I can tell, all of these mass shootings and stuff in these schools and these kids doing this stuff, one of the things that I've looked into that I see that they all have in common is that as well. They don't have a father. They don't have a strong man or strong men in their life.
100%, Wally, 100% of school shooters in the United States are dad deprived. And we focus on gun control. We focus on all the symptoms. But why aren't we focusing on the real problem, the underlying problem, the disintegration of the family in our culture? And, you mentioned it before with your dad. And it's not just alcoholism that creates problems. A huge problem in our culture today is workaholism. Because so many guys think it's my job to provide for the family. I want to give my kids what I didn't have. Well, they're working too much. They're choosing to work instead of spending time with their kids and chasing the dollar, as you mentioned earlier. And we as a society are paying a price for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't get us wrong, guys. It's important to provide in that way for your family. And I've done everything that I could so that I could work from home. My son actually just woke up, and as I was talking to Dan pre-show, I have USS Arizona model sitting on the dining room table waiting for us to sit there. It's all laid out, ready to go, and he's already peeked his head through my French doors here, and he sees I'm on a show, and he's waiting rather impatiently. But I'm here, and I'm here for him, and we're gonna do that here at 10 o'clock or almost 11 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. Well, 10:30 my time.
Good
on a
for
Tuesday
you.
morning, and then I'll get back to work. But it's just important for you guys. That's not possible for everybody. I get that, but just understand that making an income and providing for your family is extremely important. But you also have to take that time. Date your kids. This is one of the things that I've learned from some of my mentors is date one of your children at least once a month, once a quarter. Do something they want to do. Do it for the whole day. Go to the lake, go to the bouncy house, go to, whatever it's not about you. It's about their day and what they want to do.
Yeah. I have seen more romantic comedies than a man should have to endure because I have 2 girls and they love them. And you know what? When that scene finally came where the main characters were brought together and had that on-screen kiss, I'm looking at my daughters just beaming, and then I take delight in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Small price to pay.
Yeah, absolutely. But the amazing part about that whole thing, and I know that the best part about that whole thing is that you're sitting right there with them.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. So, brother, we are at the point of the conversation where we're going to pay it forward. You ready to do that?
Absolutely.
Excellent. All of you amazing small business owners out there, I want to talk to you for just a second. Are you still having fun in your business? Is it still as fun as you thought it would be 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago when you first got started? Chances are, if it's not, it's because you're not making the revenue that you thought you would. You're putting more hours in than you ever imagined that you ever would put into a job. And you're just really just kind of keeping it afloat. And that's not a great way to live. I want to help you with that. I want you to have as much fun as I'm having on a daily basis. I don't know that you'll ever be able to work out of your home like I do because of the nature of your business, but I want you to be able to spend more time with family and improve your health instead of degrade your health through spending more time at work, more time in the business. I want you working on your business instead of in your business. Now, if this is your first exposure to me, chances are you don't know me from anybody. And I totally get it that you would question, who is this Wally guy? What can he really do for me? So here's what I'm going to do for you, for all of you. I'm going to offer you 30 days free into 2 of my programs, my DIY program and my group mastermind program. I'm not going to lay it all out right here because I want to get back to the conversation, but go to menofabundance.com and click on the AP Mastery tab at the top of the page. I've put a short video there introducing myself, and I'll put some more information there that you can evaluate and take a look at what it is that I can do for your business. And look, I am willing to work with you for 30 days because I am very confident of the results that I can give you in your business in the first 30 days of you working with me. In fact, on our first 45-minute conversation, I'm going to show you where you have $10,000 to $50,000 hidden in your business. That's child's play for me. I'm not only going to show you where that's at, I'm going to give you strategies on how to uncover that money that's hidden in your business. Now, you can either go to the show notes of this episode or go to menofabundance.com and click on the AP Mastery tab at the top of the page. Now, let's get back to the conversation. So, share 1 to 3 actionable steps that Men of Abundance can take today.
Well, I think often of the story told about Mother Teresa when a man traveled to India to meet with her and asked where could he go in the world to make the greatest impact. And she said, go home and love your family. So out of that, I've got three things I would like to leave the men with today. First, take your role seriously. If you take your role as a father seriously, it will change your life. It will change the lives of your kids. It will change this world. Take your role seriously. Second, give your kids your time. Kids don't want stuff. They want you. You know, I've heard so many guys say it's not the quantity of time we give our kids, it's the quality. And there's a Latin term for that. It's lotus acrapicus. You know, that is often just a justification for men who work way too much. And honestly, a dad's workaholism can mess up our kids as much as if dad was an alcoholic. And the third thing, being a man of faith, I believe it's vitally important to discover who God is. And I mean who he really is. When we understand the fatherhood of God, it just has a profound effect on our lives and in turn on the lives of our kids. And many times even churches present a false concept of who God really is. But another thing I have found is we often see God through the lens of our dad. And for some of us, that's great. Our dad was loving and kind and affirming, and that's how we see God. Others of us were not that fortunate. We see fathers as abusive and angry, and that's how we see God. But the reality is, he's a father who longs to spend time with us. He's a father who's worthy of our trust. He hasn't broken a promise yet. He's a father who loves us just as we are. He's a father who would never think of leaving his kids. And you know what? I can get pretty close to a God like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. What daily habits make the biggest impact in your life?
Oh, man. I treasure my quiet time. And usually I focus on 4 Ps. I pray, I ponder, I plan, and perhaps most important, I prioritize. Because we can get carried away with our to-do lists, and I tend to put loving others at the top of my list every morning. And I'll tell you what, there's no greater thing for us to do. And this is with our spouse, with our kids, with the people we associate with in business. But loving others, to me, is what it's all about. People aren't going to remember your accomplishments when you're gone, but they will remember if they felt loved by you.
What are you reading or listening to that you would recommend that our abundant leaders listen to, and why?
Oh, man. Actually, a movie that came out recently called I Can Only Imagine. And I'll be honest, I usually don't like Christian movies because they're just not done real well.
Right.
This was not only one of the best Christian movies I've ever seen, it was one of the best movies I've ever seen, and it's all about the father wound. I intentionally took people who I knew who had abusive dads to see it so that we could process it afterward. I've seen it 7 times. It's out on DVD now. I know that's one I'm going to own. And I also love reading John Eldredge. He's got several books dealing with the father wound.
Excellent. What's the name of that movie?
I Can Only Imagine. Great movie. Just love it.
Excellent. Yeah, I wrote that one down because I'll get to the editing later, so I want to make sure I get to that sooner than later.
I want your feedback.
Absolutely. And I'll actually probably share the feedback when I do the editing of this conversation.
Great.
Excellent. So what do you feel holds most people back from living a life of true abundance?
Oh, man. I'm working on my second book right now, and there's a wonderful verse in the book of Isaiah that talks about soaring like eagles. And I've been around lots of people in the world, in and out of the church, and honestly, I don't see a lot of soaring. I look around, I see a lot of crashing and burning. I see a lot of up and down. I see a lot of people flapping their wings and getting nowhere, but not onward and upward. And that's what soaring is. It's not just gliding or coasting. It's moving onward and upward. So I've been polling people over the last year asking this question. If we are meant to soar like eagles, what is keeping us on the ground? And I've been fascinated with people's responses of pride, impatience, unforgiveness, complacency, but by far the number one answer is fear. Mm-hmm. And that is one that we men do not like to admit. But we are impacted more by fear than we would like to imagine. I talk about the unholy trinity of fears when I do my Finding Father's Love retreats: the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, and the fear of intimacy. Wow, those can create. Actually, that's the perfect storm for porn addiction, which is another show for another time. Mm-hmm. But we never have to worry about fearing failure or rejection when we're dealing with images on a website. Yeah. And we don't have to deal with feelings. Win, 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 right?
Exactly.
Not so much. Not so much.
Absolutely. Now, fear is by far the most common answer and most common response in various ways to that question. Where do you think that fear comes from?
Oh, my. Well, fear to me is the opposite of faith. We have to understand why we are fearful. And in a true moment of vulnerability, I will tell you that I was fearful about this call. And I've been wound up all morning, and about a half hour before we connected, I just sat down and I thought, okay, what is this about? Why? You love to talk. Why is this a problem? And I had to admit, I was fearful I was going to say something really stupid, that I was going to be judged, that, people aren't going to want to get close to me, and it's what we just talked about: fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of intimacy. It is underneath the surface more than we would like to admit. Mm-hmm. But then looking at those straight in the eye and say, you know what? I got to be done with that. I am going to have faith that I will do and say the right things, that Wally will be pleased with me because I am a people pleaser from the word go. And I got to be okay with me. And that has been a lot of my life's journey, learning to be okay with me.
Yeah, very, very important. Hey, thanks for sharing that, man. That's really important, and I truly appreciate you being vulnerable to that point to share that with us, because it's extremely important to identify that and to recognize that. So I appreciate that.
No problem.
So what does living a life of abundance mean to you?
Again, one of my favorite verses is from the book of Jeremiah, where it says that God's plan is to prosper us. And abundance and prosperity are often go hand in hand. And a lot of people misinterpret that verse as prospering means material wealth, but that's not what it's about. God's plan is to prosper us with peace, with contentment, with a sense of purpose, with joy. And all of these are characteristics of a good dad. All of these are characteristics of a good man. And that, to me, is the abundant life.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Dan, we're going to close this up. But before we do, what did we not talk about that you'd love to ensure that our abundant leaders get out of our conversation? And, of course, we're going to have your website, dankuiper.com, linked up in the show notes, and any other way that we can get in contact with you.
Yeah, just through the website is the best way. I've got some Facebook pages as well. I got a personal one. I got an author speaker page, and I got one for my book, When Father's a Bad Word. But if there were any words of wisdom I'd like to impart at the end, it would be this, that it's never too late to become the man and the father that you want to be. You can find healing for your wounds, whether they're father wounds, mother wounds, church wounds, divorce wounds, whatever they happen to be. Healing can be found. Forgiveness and freedom is possible. Yeah. And we can soar. Then we can soar like eagles.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then the next step after that, in my mind, is helping others soar. And that's part of that whole process. Absolutely beautiful, man. Yeah. I love it. And one of the things I want to point out is I was going to mention earlier, but I just remembered when we were talking about, how many boys are out there without dads. Guys, it's not just about the dad. It's just about having men in their life, strong men who they can rely on and mentor. The first real strong man in my life was my high school freshman football coach. Mm-hmm. That was him. That was him, and I can't explain what that man did for me. But guys, you can do that. You can be that man for those boys. That one boy out there that needs some guidance. Bring them along and show them what a real man is. That'll help you be an even better man and soar beyond your dreams.
More young guys that we know of that are just longing for that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason why when I joined the military, that's why I liked it so much. I just realized I needed the discipline more than anything.
It does that, doesn't it?
It certainly does. I loved it from basic training because that's definitely what was missing in my life at that point. Anyhow, Dan, great conversation, man. I truly appreciate your wisdom. Absolutely love what you're doing. Go out there, live your life of abundance, and keep paying it forward, man. It truly is paying off, as I'm sure you know.
Amen. Thank you, Wally. I appreciate you and all you're doing too. Blessings.
All right, guys, so your action step that I have for you today is to figure out a way to spend quality time with your children, like Dan and I discussed during the conversation, or even find a retreat like the Finding Fathers Love seminars or some sort of retreat that can get you out of your comfort zone, get you and your children and your spouse for that matter, get yourself out of your normal routine and spend some quality time with each other. This really is not difficult to do, but the payoff is absolutely huge and life-changing. It's so easy to go to Walmart or some other store and just buy your kid a toy to appease them for a little while or get them that toy that they always wanted. But just like the little sign that I have right here on my bookshelf, collect moments, not things. Moments will last forever. And just think about the last toy that you bought your child. Where's it at? Probably can't find it, or it's deep in the bottom of the toy box, or it's broken and in the garbage. Bottom line, it's out of sight, out of mind. Those memories will stay there forever. Now, go out and live your life of abundance, and make sure to pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.